The night I turned 18, my parents gave me a suitcase. Not a birthday gift, a suitcase. My mother placed it in front of me like it was completely normal. "You're an adult now," she said calmly. My father didn't even look up from his phone. "You'll figure things out," he added. That was it. No party, no celebration, just a suitcase, and the expectation that I should leave. I remember standing in the living room holding that suitcase, trying to process what was happening. "Wait," I said. "You're serious?" My mother sighed like I was being difficult. "You knew this was coming," she said. I didn't. Not really. Sure, they had joked about it before, about how once I turned 18 I'd be on my own, but I always thought it was just that. A joke. Apparently, it wasn't. "You can stay with friends," my father said. "Or maybe you could get a job somewhere." I stared at them. "I'm still in high school." My mother shrugged. "Lots of people work and finish school," she said. Then she added the sentence that stayed with me for years. "You're not a child anymore. Stop acting like one." At first, I thought maybe they just didn't care. But later, I realized something else. They didn't need me anymore. Because my younger brother Jason still lived at home. Jason was their favorite. Not because he was kinder, not because he worked harder, but because Jason was exactly what my parents wanted. He agreed with them. He obeyed them. He never argued. I was different. I asked questions. I challenged things. And in my parents' house, that made me the problem. So when I turned 18, they solved their problem the easiest way possible. They removed it. Me. The first few months were the hardest. I slept on a friend's couch. Then another friend's. Eventually, I found a tiny room for rent above a laundromat. It smelled like detergent all the time. But it was mine. I worked at a grocery store during the day, finished school at night. Sometimes I slept 4 hours, sometimes less. And during those long nights, I kept thinking about something my father said the day he kicked me out. "You'll figure things out." At the time, it sounded like an insult. Later, it became motivation, because every paycheck, every exam I passed, every step forward, proved something important. I was figuring things out, just not with their help. The next 10 years passed faster than I expected. Life didn't magically become easy, but it became stable. I finished college, got a real job, then a better one. Eventually, I started my own small business. And slowly, very slowly, life began to look like something I had built myself, not something I had survived. I hadn't spoken to my parents in almost 8 years. Not because I was angry, because there was nothing left to say. Then one afternoon, my phone rang. The caller ID said Mom. I stared at the screen for a long time, 8 years. And suddenly she wanted to talk. I answered. "Hello?" My mother's voice sounded strangely cheerful. "Oh, good you answered," she said, like nothing had happened, like she hadn't thrown me out of the house with a suitcase. "How are you?" she asked. "I'm fine." There was a pause. Then she said something that made my stomach tighten. "Well, we need your help." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, because it was predictable. "What kind of help?" I asked. My mother hesitated. Then she said it. "Your father lost his job." I waited. "And Jason's business isn't doing well," she added. Of course it wasn't. Jason had started 3 different businesses in 5 years. Everyone funded by my parents. Everyone failed. "So we were hoping," my mother continued carefully, "you might be able to help the family." There it was. The word family. The same family that gave me a suitcase on my birthday. "How exactly?" I asked. Well, she said nervously, we heard your company is doing really well. I leaned back in my chair. You heard that? Yes. We thought maybe you could loan us some money. Loan. Interesting word. How much? I asked. There was a long pause. Then she said a number. 50,000. I almost dropped the phone. You want $50,000? It would help Jason keep his business running, she said quickly. Jason. Of course. Not rent, not medical bills, Jason's failing business. I stared out the window of my office, the city lights reflected against the glass. For a moment, I imagined my 18-year-old self standing in that living room, holding a suitcase. You'll figure things out. My father's voice echoed in my memory, and suddenly I realized something. This conversation wasn't about money. It was about consequences. 2 weeks later, I drove back to my hometown. Not because I planned to give them money, because I wanted to see them. For the first time in almost a decade. When I knocked on the door, my mother opened it. She looked older, tired, but her smile appeared instantly. Oh my God, she said. It's so good to see you. Like nothing had ever happened. My father walked into the hallway. Jason stood behind him, all of them staring at me like I had returned from a long vacation, not like they had thrown me out. My mother gestured toward the living room. Come sit, she said. We should talk about the loan. Straight to the point. I sat down. Jason leaned forward immediately. So, how much can you give us? He asked. Not if. How much? I looked at all three of them. Then I asked the one question they clearly hadn't expected. Do you remember my 18th birthday? The room went quiet. My mother's smile faded slightly. Why bring that up? She said. Because that was the last time we talked. My father shifted in his chair. That was years ago, he said. You need to let that go. I nodded slowly. You're right, I said. Jason smiled like the problem was solved. So about the money? I stood up. No. Three faces stared at me. What do you mean, no? My mother asked. I mean the same thing Dad told me 10 years ago. I looked directly at him. You'll figure things out. Sometimes the people who teach you the hardest lessons in life are your own family. But the funny thing about those lessons is this. They usually come back around. And one day, the people who told you to survive on your own will ask you to save them.